This episode is brought to you by Dime Media. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Cultivate CNY. I'm your host, Alex Canavan, and today's episode is a solo episode. I don't ever do solo episodes. This is technically my second one. However, I'm considering it my first. At least the first one here in the beautiful Dime Media podcast studio. So yeah, I'm really excited for this episode today because I've decided that I want to show up more and talk more. Not necessarily about myself a whole lot, but I want to talk about what we're doing, what we're working on here, and just give you a little bit more behind the scenes into the CNY Women's Network, into my life, into what it takes to do all of this here. So I'm really excited to share more and to not necessarily be seen more. It's kind of scary, but I'm going to kick off this solo episode by reintroducing myself. I've never really formally told my story on this podcast or really publicly at all. However, I have noticed that every time I meet someone new or grab coffee with a new person, people are curious. They want to know where I came from, how I started this. And actually, in just 2 months, we are going to have been producing this podcast for 2 years. I cannot believe it. And in 2 years, I have totally dedicated this platform to, giving the businesses in this region a face, humanizing them, if you will, sharing the stories of all of the incredible people I've had the pleasure of connecting with. And it's honestly been an absolute privilege and honor. If you guys like these, let me know and I'll keep making them for you. Let's go ahead and talk about my history, I guess you could say, my background, if you will. So I am a Central New York native, born and raised, grew up in Liverpool, graduated from Liverpool High School in 2016. And I've really been here my whole life, aside from, 1 year spent in Buffalo after high school. I was studying dance at the University of Buffalo. And also, aside from the 6 weeks that I spent in Florida during the pandemic, that I'm considering my study abroad. I think that's really good. That's like a really accurate way to describe what that was. Definitely like a study abroad situation. Learned a lot. But yeah, so I went to school for dance right after high school. So basically, I grew up dancing competitively. It's like sounds so like pretentious when I say that, I guess, but no, I was a competitive dancer, which means I dance was my entire life and identity when I was a kid. Kid to an adult. I started dancing when I was 11, which is really late. Most girls start dancing when they're like 2, 3, 4 years old. But I got into it because my cousin was taking hip hop classes at a nearby dance studio. I took one with her and just from that point on decided that I was a dancer and I was meant to be a dancer. So I was always, I guess, a pretty goal driven kid, although I didn't have an outlet that I felt like I didn't have that hobby or that thing that I was really, really good at that I took pride in until I started dancing when I was 12. So I really dove into that and just I was obsessed with it. Um, I danced about I would say, I mean, doing the math, I think around like 16 hours a week I danced. And then I would be on stage, during competition season, like every other weekend. It was very time consuming. It was a huge responsibility, but I fully accredit my, you know, dance education to giving me I would say the work ethic for sure, the confidence to step in front of a camera and step on stage, put myself out there, get in front of people and like express myself. Self-expression was a huge part of my life, I think, growing up. And I'm so fortunate for that because I had a really supportive family and friends and a really supportive mother, honestly, that wholeheartedly believed in my dream of being a dancer and always encouraged me to stay true to myself. She encouraged me to wear the craziest outfits and just express myself. She was never trying to make me fit in or make me smaller. Honestly, the weirder the better for her. She kind of got a kick out of it. Like I'm starting to think she was like masochistic in a way, but yeah, I was just like really fortunate to grow up with a really awesome mom and a supportive environment where I could just truly explore myself and uh, have the confidence to be who I wanted to be, or at least to try things out. I was very experimental, especially when it did come to outfits and makeup and hair. Um, I was super into makeup and hair as well in high school. So that actually kind of leads into what I did after I was done dancing. So after high school, went to school for a year at the University of Buffalo. I was in their BFA program studying dance. I loved it. I felt like I was in my element there. I felt like I went to a really competitive dance studio and I always felt like I was second best, like everywhere I went. I was never the one that people really believed in or wanted to invest in, right? So I just always kind of felt like the underdog. And when I went to UB, I felt like that was like the first place in my dance career where I was seen. I felt seen for the first time, and I felt like there were people there that believed in me, and I was able to really hone in on my strengths and what made me unique as a dancer. So I felt like I was like really onto something there. But long story short, dance, the dance industry the dance career itself is not for people that don't come from money or have money or resources. And I honestly don't come from a lot of money. My mother and my parents sacrificed a lot to put me in dance. As an adult now, as I reflect on that, I'm like, why did they uh, sacrifice so much to put me through dance? I mean, it was just dance, right? But I digress. That's probably another conversation. I'm just really grateful to have had a mom that wanted to give me everything that I desired, and she knew how much I loved dancing, so she sacrificed to give that to me. But anyways, uh, I could not afford to keep going to school there, and I was not getting enough money in student loans to cover the expenses of living in Buffalo, and there was no way for me to pay the balance I had. So they literally put a hold on my account and was like, "You cannot come back unless you can give us like 25K, girlfriend." And I was like, "Yeah, 18 years old, no credit, don't have a cosigner, can't get a student loan. So I guess I'll go back to Syracuse. Bye." And at the time, I was super devastated. Like, I felt like my life was over. Like, everything I had ever worked for was just slipped through my fingers, like the rug was pulled out from under me. So, definitely had a little bit of an identity crisis when I was 19. Dealt with that in a lot of really interesting ways. Another conversation for another time. And quickly pivoted though. I quickly decided that I was going to become a makeup artist. If I couldn't be a dancer, I could still be a creative, I could still be an artist, and I was going to pursue makeup. So within like 3 weeks of moving home from Buffalo, I got a job working for MAC Cosmetics as an artist. It was a really lucky situation, especially as someone that had no prior experience as a makeup artist. I did not have a cosmetology license or an esthetician license, but the stars aligned. I was blessed and I got the opportunity to pursue a new career that made me feel like I still had purpose. So I did that. I worked for MAC Cosmetics, and when I was 19, I got that job. And as soon as I started working for them, I started my own business on the side as a freelance makeup artist and really just did makeup whenever I could. I worked my schedule around my clients. If my clients needed me while I was at the Mac counter, I took them at the Mac counter. If my clients needed me while I was not at the Mac counter, I would go to them and freelance. And I, that was my first experience building a business, just building a personal brand, building a clientele. That was my first experience figuring out how I wanted to conduct myself as a professional. And I was obsessed. I was so obsessed with makeup. It was all I consumed, it was all I created, it was all I thought about. I was fully committed to being a makeup artist. And when I was, committed to dance, I wanted to go out west. I wanted to like go to LA and do dance and music videos and choreograph and do that stuff, kind of be in like show business. And then when I decided I was going to be a makeup artist, I was like, okay, I can still go to LA and I can do like red carpet makeup or work with models or influencers. So that was my intention for the earlier part of my 20s. So I'm working in the bridal industry because that's really the bread and butter here in upstate New York. It's weddings, good money in that. And that was how I was able to sustain myself. Eventually I left retail, left the Mac counter and started bartending. A lot more money in that. It was a much more efficient way of supplementing my income while I was kind of living out that starving artist lifestyle. Um, you know, I was like, I've always been one of those people that has wanted to be known for something, I guess, but I I knew that I really wanted to zone in on makeup and just be known as like an incredible makeup artist. So I was very intentional about not diversifying and not going to esthetician school and not doing facials. There were so many people that were like, why don't you just like become an esthetician, do facials like 9 to 5 during the week and then do makeup on the weekends? And I just I just knew from the start that that was never my intention. So my intention was to build a portfolio, build a book of business, get a bunch of experience under my belt, save enough money to move out west and pursue like red carpet stuff. But as you know, the story goes, good old Syracuse has its way of keeping you here, I guess. But yeah, a tale as old as time. Met a guy, got comfortable, stayed on the hamster wheel, for a few years there, and then when I was about 22, the pandemic happened. 2020 happened. And that was being on unemployment in 2020, as awful as that was, and as weird as it sounds, it was honestly the biggest blessing I could have gotten because it was the first time since I stopped dancing that I was able to get off the hamster wheel and everything look at everything I had done and where I was at and where I wanted to go, and decided that I definitely needed a change. I needed to make a change in my life. One of those changes was definitely the relationship, and but it also was like my career. I knew that I was not where I wanted to be in my makeup career here in Syracuse. And really, and I honestly jumped at the first opportunity to change that. And one of that opportunity was a makeup gig in Florida. Um, ran away to Florida, ran away from that relationship, not proud of it. Wouldn't do the same thing now. I am much, much more mature and, uh, confident, I guess you could say now. I much more able to have difficult conversations than I was when I was 22. Let's just say that. So I run away to Florida. I do the Florida thing for literally 8 weeks, six to 8 weeks or something like that, in 2020. Had myself a time, did a little bit of makeup, um, had a lot of fun, learned a lot about myself, where I wanted to go, and within 8 weeks decided that that was not Florida. I saw my life going in two very different directions, and I knew I had to get off at the earliest exit. So I came back home. Granted, I had a lot of work here still. I had plenty of weddings that I needed to fulfill that fall. So I came back home and decided that I was going to fulfill those clients and figure things out here in Syracuse. Love supporting local, but looking to save? I've got the solution. Introducing the 2025 CNY Women's Network Members Card. This is your passport to exclusive year-round savings at over 35 amazing women-owned businesses across Central New York. Whether you're grabbing coffee, booking a spa day, or shopping a local boutique, using your members card means more than just discounts. You're empowering women, strengthening small businesses, and building a thriving community one purchase at a time. Want to see all the offers and partner spots? Head to cnywomen'snetwork.com/members-card or click the link in our bio. And here's the best part. Join the collective by CNY Women's Network and you'll get your members card free with your annual membership. More details at cnywomen'snetwork.com/membership. Let's grow together, one card, one connection, one business at a time. Eventually, 2021, I go back to school. I went to OCC, went and got my associates. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be doing makeup forever. I want to make a pivot. I want to get into business. I want to get into the business scene here. So I guess I'll just start by going to business school, right? So I get my associates from OCC, did that in like 3 semesters because I'm just insane. And I was like, I have no business like being on a college campus for 4 years. Let's get this done as quickly as possible. Totally burned myself out in the process of that, but I got it done. And somewhere within those 3 semesters, I started interning for, I picked up like a administrative assistant part-time gig at Equitable Advisors. And while I was there, I pitched the idea that ultimately led to what you see here today and what is the CNY Women's Network today. So basically, how that happened. So I'm at Equitable. I'm working for a really fun, young professional guy that totally believed in me and was really open-minded and really open to new ideas. So he also knew that I had a thing for marketing and that I was really interested in like going into marketing in my career. But I still was undecided at that point while I was getting my degree. And he put a little idea in my head of doing something for International Women's Day. He was thinking a social media campaign where we shouted out, a few women leaders from our region, just something light and fun for social media. And I went home that weekend and I just kind of brainstormed and thought about it. But I came back on Monday and I was like, we're not just going to do a social media campaign. We're going to host an event. And at the time that was kind of insane because it was January 2022. We were still wearing masks and there had been no events since 2020. And he was like, okay, tell me more. And so I pitched him the idea to host the first annual CNY Women's Summit at the On Center. And I was like, it will be great. It'll be an amazing opportunity for Equitable. It'll be an amazing opportunity for all of the women in our region, and I pitched it to him as a recruiting opportunity because I knew he was kind of interested in me eventually finishing my degree and becoming an advisor with Equitable. And so I was really smart and I was like, think about it. I'll host this awesome event. Equitable will be the sponsor. You're going to back it. You're going to be the reason why we can host this. And we're going to be able to attract a bunch of cool, ambitious young women just like myself. And they're all going to look at Equitable like an ally and a supporter of women in business. And why wouldn't they want to come and work for you guys? So he totally loved that. His bosses loved it, got the green light. And then I told him, I said, listen, we don't have the audience though. We won't be able to get people there unless we were partnering with the right organization. And he agreed. So I said, Equitable is the key sponsor, but we need to find a host. And it just so happened that at the time, my mother was the deputy director at the Women's Opportunity Center, which is an incredible nonprofit organization here in Syracuse. And there's a location in Ithaca that supports women. They've kind of pivoted their mission since then, but at the time it was, an organization that supported displaced homemakers and just women in general with navigating career changes, pivots, the start of a new career, really anything, kind of career coaching services. So I knew they had the audience that we needed to tap into, at least a pretty substantial email list that we could market this event to, right? So I went ahead, called my mom, pitched her the idea, and they had not figured out their big charity event of the year yet. So they were down for the challenge because international women, the whole angle of this event, the CNY Women's Summit, was for a celebration of women leaders in Central New York for International Women's Day. So it was important that this event happened on or around International Women's Day. And at the time, we were nearing the end of January, and that was only 6 weeks away. So we knew we were about to bite off something. Not that we couldn't chew, but it was going to be a tough one. But long story short, we had pitched, planned, marketed, and executed the first CNY Women's Summit in 5.5 weeks. And our original attendance goal was like 70 to 90 women, and we brought in over 160 women to that first event. And it was incredible. It was, at the time, being the one that created this platform, that was the biggest moment of my career. It was totally life-changing, and now that I'm reflecting on it. But I remember it was in 2022. It was just, we just hosted our 4th summit. And it feels like, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, but it's been longer than that. And I just remember the stress I was under. It was totally the biggest amount of pressure I had ever gone under in my career, but it wasn't totally foreign to me. And I think that in a way I realized for the first time since dancing that I loved the thrill of a performance. It reminded me of like getting ready for competition weekend again. And it's so funny, actually. I just hired my mom as my executive assistant right before our most recent summit. And she was really, really supportive and, kind of just being a really huge support system for me in this year's summit, just helping me with odds and ends and like, coming to the hotel room and bringing me like coffee and just like being with me and being there with me. It really reminded me, it was like so full circle. It reminded me of being a competitive dancer and just having my mom with me backstage, helping me with changes, helping me stretch, making sure I was fed and hydrated. Like it was so, I don't know, so full circle. And so, yeah, I think that, that first summit, I fell in love. I just totally fell in love with producing events after that. But after the first summit, I was still getting my degree. I had this job over at Equitable. I was still managing my makeup business as well. We were just heading into wedding season right after that summit. So I didn't do anything at all with the brand or with the event after the first summit until it was time to plan the second one in 2023. That one went well again. It was awesome. We doubled our attendance from the year prior. We brought in around 340-ish women to that event. And the energy in the room was just palpable. It was just through the roof. And at that point, by the second summit, I had finished my associates and I had just started my first semester at SUNY Oswego because I was going to finish my bachelor's through Oswego's online business program. And I will say that while, planning the second summit started when my semester started, and I'll be honest, I chose the summit over school, and I resigned from a class, failed another one, did not do well at all. And after the second summit and feeling the success of it, feeling the energy in the room, I had this intuitive feeling that I needed to build the CNY Women's Network. So I knew that just by the energy in the room, I knew that if I didn't build this brand that I had in my mind, someone else was going to. Because, if you were there that day at our second summit, people were excited. And you could just tell that people were not only excited, but relieved. They're like, finally, there's a platform, there's something like this for women like me, like us. Just a place, just a really inspiring, energetic space for women to get together, connect, and just be in their element. One of the things I love about the CNY Women's Summit is that people show up and they show out. People show up in their best power suit. They wear all the color. They just look the part. And it's not necessarily about looking any specific kind of way. It's just about showing up in full expression of who you are, right? And that's what I've always been all about. And that's what I want other women to be about, because it's really incredible and it's such a gift to be comfortable and safe and empowered enough to just lean fully into who you are and who you want to be. So I was just lucky enough to grow up with a mom that, filled my head up with all that good stuff. But, as I've continued to meet so many women, I continue to realize that not everybody was as lucky as I was. Not everybody grew up with a encouraging and borderline delusional mother that made me borderline delusional as well. So yeah, anyways, after the second summit in 2023, I went on a yoga retreat at Kripalu in the Berkshires. If you're familiar, Kripalu is like a yoga institute in the Berkshires. And I stumbled upon this seminar that was happening the weekend after the summit. It was Women's History Month. So the seminar was titled Awakening the Divine Feminine Within. And I was like, okay, I think I need to go to that. So I just signed up for it with no expectations. Come to find out that the woman leading this seminar is a legend. And she's an icon. I remember being in the first seminar of the weekend, and we were all going around and introducing ourselves and explaining why we were there. And more than half of the people attending this seminar were like, I've been following you for years and I'm so honored to be in your presence. And I was like, what the heck? Who is this person? And I ended up looking her up. I'm like, wow, I am in the presence of a legend. Okay, amazing. Anyways, I went to this seminar alone. It was 3 days total, and I'm so grateful that I did it, because I probably wouldn't have had the, we can call them epiphanies, but I wouldn't have had the the space to tap into my intuition so much. And all I can say is my mind, the universe, whoever was just telling me, girlfriend, business school will always be there, but this opportunity will not. And you need to go do this right now. And not only that, this is the moment you've been waiting for. I mean, in 2021, when I decided to go back to school for business, I knew I didn't want to be a makeup artist for the rest of my life. I knew that I wanted to build something else, to do something else, to try something new. And I'll also be honest, I've always wanted to build a brand. Like, I've known that for a very long time. So it was so abundantly clear to me that this was my big break, if you will. This was my moment. And if I didn't jump on the opportunity, I would have regretted it forever. If I would have listened to all the people that were like, oh, finish school. You got this far. You may as well finish. Oh, it just gets harder to go back to school. Just finish it. Just get it done. If I listened to the people that were like, oh no, don't quit makeup. You're too good. Oh, but you're so good. What a shame. Oh my gosh, that's so sad. Instead of being like, you know what, you're an incredible makeup artist, but girlfriend, you've got so much more potential and I'm so glad you can see it. Like, go for it. I can't wait to see what you accomplish, right? If I had just like not been so in tuned with my own desires and my intuition and my purpose, then I would have listened to those people and I'd probably have a bachelor's degree. Maybe I'd be working on a master's. Who knows? I'd probably be burnt out and lost. Still pretty lost and tired, but it's a different kind for sure. So yeah, after that retreat, I went home to my partner and I was like, hey, I'm dropping out of school. I'm going to I'm gonna start shutting down my makeup business. I'm not gonna accept any more clients, and I'm gonna build this company, and we'll see how it goes. I'll say though, if I didn't have a supportive partner, I wouldn't have been able to build this company. I wouldn't have been able to make that rash decision and make a pivot so quickly. And that's all the reason why I'm grateful and why I work so hard, because I truly believe that I would not have all these opportunities right in front of me if I was not supposed to do something with them, right? And probably from what you see or from what you hear, a lot of what I do sounds really fun and glamorous and awesome, and it absolutely is, but it is a lot of work. And it is challenging and it is scary and it is humbling and it is vulnerable. And it's really, I mean, since starting this company, my character has developed so much because it truly is like a spiritual journey building a brand. But, there's times where it is really hard and it is so challenging and it is so humbling that I do consider like, maybe I should just like go and get a 9 to 5, or like go and look for a job that'll pay me well. I probably could find one at this point, right? I've built a little bit of a portfolio, right? But I just, I always snap out of it and remind myself, no, girlfriend, have you have had too many opportunities, resources, and too much support for you to not continue growing this thing, or to not continue, building something that is going to make a difference in other people's lives and impact women in Central New York. And that's the whole point of this. And I think a huge reason why I started this and why I'm so passionate about giving a platform and creating opportunities and connecting people is because I feel like I just didn't have that. And I feel like a huge reason why I went to school and I felt like I had to go back to school at 22 years old when all my friends had their degrees and were starting their careers, because I was like, I know I'm meant to do something great, and I know I could be really valuable to someone or to an organization, but I just know that my resume doesn't speak for itself yet. So I just kind of, I also felt like there was a lack of opportunities here too in Central New York. I always kind of felt that way, especially as a creative, and as an artist. Like I mentioned earlier, the wedding industry is the bread and butter here, but I really wanted to do either go into fashion or like red carpet or entertainment, maybe film. And yes, we have the Syracuse film, but I don't know. We can all feel the momentum that's happening right now in the region, and there's definitely a lot of opportunities that are coming our way. So it's a really good time to be in Syracuse. It's a really good time to be building a business in Central New York. I think this is if you have an idea, do it now before this place is popping and booming with new businesses and fresh ideas from all the people that are going to be moving to the region. So so yeah, that was actually a lot more of a long-winded explanation of who I am and where I come from, but I hope that gives you a little bit of insight into how I got here. So technically the CNY Women's Network was established in 2023, and when I started the CNY Women's Network, I knew that I also wanted to start a podcast because I knew that if I wanted to grow as quickly as I wanted to grow, I needed to have a podcast. Having a podcast is hands down, I didn't realize this at the time, but it is hands down one of the best networking tools you could have. We all hear, people say like, oh, never ask without a give, right? Or, there's nothing, people always complain about, people reaching out and asking, oh, can I pick your brain and get coffee? When there's really nothing, you're not like coming to the table and saying, hey, can I give you this thing? And I feel like having a podcast has been that for me. So here we are now. It is April 2025, and we've been podcasting since July 2023, which is almost 2 years. And we are at 79 episodes, y'all. That's crazy. Honestly, it's insane. I'm looking at our analytics right now. And it's really incredible because honestly, I don't really pay attention to the analytics. I need to start, you know, looking at things more probably, but a lot more people listen to this show than I thought. So that's pretty cool. So if you're listening to this, thank you so much because it'd be really embarrassing if, if I kept showing up and no one was listening to this. So, um, but that's not why we do this. It's really not about me. It truly is like it has become, I think, a platform for business owners to be seen and discovered. And my favorite thing to hear is when a previous guest reaches out and is like, hey, this person reached out after my episode and we're going to be getting coffee soon and we might start working together. Or, I'm just always happy to hear about the different opportunities that are coming up for the people that have been on the show or even just the people that we worked with through the CNY Women's Network in general. So let me just give you a brief we'll see if this is brief, explanation of the CNY Women's Network. So we are first and foremost a community of ambitious, growth-minded women that live, work, and play in Central New York. But we are also a media company that connects, promotes, and inspires women in Central New York. And everything that we do is out of the intention of either creating more opportunities, creating more economic activity, and ultimately creating more prosperity for women in Central New York. I had really, I did not have a very clear vision, or I had a vision, but I didn't have a clear direction of what I wanted what I wanted CNY Women's Network to be at first. And since starting it in 2023, it has evolved into something that I'd never even expected or anticipated. I really thought that, all we could have done for women is host cool events and create networking opportunities for women, but there are so many other ways that we're partnering with people and consulting with people, honestly, that are supporting them in their business growth, maybe a business rebrand or a pivot. And I'm just ultimately like really passionate about business in Central New York. I'm passionate about Central New York in general, as you can tell. Um, I I remember in my early 20s when I had moved back from Buffalo, and I was building my makeup business here, and like I was downtown. I think it was like the night before Thanksgiving. You know what I mean? That really big bar night. Um, and I think I was 21, and I ran into some people that I went to high school with, and they were really nice, but we were chatting and, really complimentary. Oh, like it's really cool what you're doing with makeup, and it's awesome that you have a business and blah, blah, blah. And then of course, the I think the harmless comment comes up of, why are you still in Syracuse? You I just never expected you to stay in Syracuse. Like, I feel like you should be in New York or something, or like just trying to make suggestions of like where I should be and what I should be doing. And for like, I personally, I feel like anybody else would have heard a comment like that and gotten maybe self-conscious or started to panic because maybe they felt like, oh boy, oh no, I'm in the wrong place. I shouldn't be here because someone else told me I shouldn't. But I always had this strong belief that, well, first of all, I was like, Syracuse is a great place to live in general. I'd rather be able to maybe afford a house someday and like, I don't know, have a driveway where I can walk my groceries inside instead of living in like a high rise in New York City. And I don't know, I understood that New York City was a rat race, and not that I couldn't thrive in a city. It's just that I knew that I didn't have to be in a city like New York or whatever city that everybody is like flocking to in order to be successful. And I also have always kind of had this philosophy of like, I don't know, like I don't feel obligated to, I've never been one of those people that's like, oh, I have to move to New York so I can like have opportunities. If you can't create opportunities or like build a business here in Central New York where there is so much room to innovate and to test things out and to play, honestly, what makes you think you're going to go into an insanely saturated market and have success there? And like, not only that, have quick success. So having started a business at 19 here in Central New York that was the type of business where I did rely on my customer base being here in my region, right? I was a makeup artist. I had to physically touch people to make money. And um I was growing roots here from 19. So at 21 and hearing someone say that, I'm like, first of all, I can't leave, right? I have I'm indebted to the people here. Better yet, I've kind of built something here. I have a reputation here. I have a community here, and that's something that not a lot of professionals in their early 20s get to say, right? So why would I just like throw all that out the window to move to a city that someone else thinks I belong in because I don't know, maybe because it looks better to everybody else, like on social media probably. It would have been a totally silly silly decision on my part, and totally just a decision that I would have solely made out of ego, right? So anyways, done with that little tangent, but basically you know, that being said, one of the other million reasons why I am building the CNY Women's Network is because I just want to create more I wanted to create a platform where Central New York could not only be, but also look the part, be and look what we have always wanted it to be and look like, right? So, hosting really incredible events that not only are amazing to attend, but also look really beautiful and make for really great content on social media. And start posting reels that you see New York City influencers creating, but creating them here in Syracuse and just replicating, I guess you could say, those big city initiatives here in Syracuse. Because, remote work is remote now. We don't have to move to New York to get an opportunity. We can create them for ourselves right from the comfort of our own home. Um, so what are we working on now? What are we doing at the CNY Women's Network right now? I want to briefly talk about that because we're working on some really exciting things, some new initiatives, some old ones that we're improving and expanding upon. So I'm going to start with that. So we just launched our 2025 members card. And if you don't know, the CNY Women's Network members card is our little way of supporting and stimulating economic activity, particularly for women-owned businesses in Central New York. So our members card, we have over 30 different businesses that we're partnering with. Each of these businesses are offering an exclusive discount to our cardholders for their services. And you'll see, if you go visit our website and check it out, you'll see that these discounts or promotions are meant to be used more than once, right? So the whole goal was not only to introduce a new customer to our partners' businesses, but to create a new loyal customer, right? To create a more consistent flow of spending and support in economic activity, right? And we just hope that we're able to do our part and have a little bit of an impact on Central New York's small business economy, and of course, creating opportunities for women-owned businesses to get that support and to thrive. Another thing I'm really excited about is our supper club that we are going to be hosting in May. We're planning on hosting 3 different supper clubs in 2025. And first one's at the end of May. And each of these supper clubs, so I would describe these supper clubs as like a mastermind situation. However, in terms of who's at these supper clubs, strategy is a little bit different. So each supper club, so we host monthly member dinner meetups that are really, really fun. They're like always our most favorite event from our members. But those are just simple, like getting dinner with the girls, no specific topic of conversation explored. It's really just casual conversation, and it's really just us talking to whoever's next to us. But I wanted to launch a supper club in 2024 and it never happened. But here we are in 2025 and we're finally launching it. And I'm really excited about this because I have been dying to create a little bit more of a high level, intentional environment where specific topics and themes are being explored. Um, I also am really interested in kind of the matchmaking that goes on at mastermind events. So we're going to be really intentional about our guest list and our seating chart. And I'm really hoping that these supper clubs are able to provide really valuable new connections for our guests. And I'm excited to be featuring really accomplished and influential women speakers at each of these supper clubs, depending on the topic. So, our first supper club, like I said, is going to be happening at the end of May. And that one, we're going to be featuring Kristen Taylor. Kristen is actually a Central New York resident and has a really cool job. She oversees global brand partnerships for Lululemon. So we're super lucky to have her right here in our backyard, and I'm super honored to be including her as our featured speaker for our first supper club. And at that one, we're going to be exploring the power of partnerships. So I love this conversation. I love talking about partnerships and the importance of partnerships, of course, but I also love talking strategies and I love hearing about how other people have developed and leveraged and deepened partnerships. So this was a selfish decision on my behalf. I'm sorry, guys. I just really wanted to hear from Kristen, but I was surprised by how many people jumped at the opportunity and applied to be at this event. So given that it is supposed to be more of like a high level conversation, we want to make sure that everybody that is sitting at this table, um, is aligned, whether aligned in their own personal goals or where they're at in the business. We want to make sure that the conversation is, really valuable for everyone that attends, and we have the right people, which means that we need to have the right people at the table, right? So there is an application process. Um, this event is invite only, and we are giving our members of the collective, first access to these spots. These supper clubs are also going to be very small to kind of maintain that really intimate, really engaged conversation. So at least our first supper club is going to have 12 seats at it. 2 of those will be for myself and our guest speaker, which means we have 10 spots that we're filling with applicants. So our members also get $50 off their ticket. They get first access, they get priority access to these seats, but we do open up the rest of the seats to people outside of our membership community that saw the opportunity and have applied. So if you are interested in that, we are accepting applications still until May 9th. So I will be sure to leave the link to the application in the show notes. You can go ahead and apply there. We just have a few questions about obviously who you are, what you do, and why you want to attend, what your goals are. And we'll be in touch at least by May 9th on your application. Okay, so that's the supper club. Okay. Another thing I'm really excited about. Yay. Okay, so we have our weekly walks are going to be starting back up this Friday, actually. So this episode's coming out on the 28th. Yeah, so not this Friday, this Sunday. So our first walk is going to be this Sunday, May 4th. May the 4th be with you in Camillus. And it's going to be led by our member, Kelly Landau, who owns Simple Lifestyle Boutique in Camillus. This is the 3rd year that we're doing these weekly walks, and I absolutely love them. It's been a really great way, I think, to grow the community. And I just love our strategy for it. So I'm just going to quickly explain that. So this year, we kind of want to do a little bit of a rebrand for our walks. And instead of just calling them weekly walks, we're going to call it the CNY Women's Walking Club. And this CNY Women's Walking Club is going to meet every Sunday from May through October. We're going to have 3 walks and 1 hike a month. So the first Sunday, we're going to be in Camillus. The second Sunday, we're going to be in Fayetteville. The third Sunday, we're going to be in Liverpool. And the fourth Sunday, we're going to be doing a hike somewhere within, I would say, at least somewhere within a 90-mile radius of Central New York. Our first hike is going to be at Clark's Reservation. So we're going to be starting off really good, doing a kind of a CNY staple hike. Absolutely love Clark Reservation. But we're really excited for this because I think our walking club will be able to be its own little community. That's why we kind of want to rebrand it. And which means that we're also looking for sponsors. So if you have a brand that wants to be known and be seen by our community, not only that, but by the kind of community that wakes up early on a Sunday morning to get a 3-mile walk in, if you know what I mean, shoot us an email. You can inquire about sponsorship opportunities at media@cnywomensnetwork.com. We're currently pitching those to potential sponsors. We'd love to have a conversation with you. We have some really interesting ideas on how we want to represent our sponsors throughout this promotional period. And like I said, these walks are going to be happening from May through October. So there is a 6-month promotional period here. So really, really awesome opportunity to partner with us and market your brand. So there's so many other things that we have in the works for 2025. We're working on a retreat for our members. I don't want to talk about the location yet, although we did just sign the contract, so I do know where it's going to be. And I'm really excited for that retreat because it's going to be unique and nostalgic. And I personally think it's going to be a lot of fun for myself. I feel like it's going to heal me in a way. So stay tuned for updates on that. And if you are ever interested in being a guest on Cultivate CNY, if you're ever interested in partnering with the CNY Women's Network, there's so many, the opportunities are absolutely endless. So never hesitate to shoot us a DM, send us an email. Information about that will be linked in the show notes. I'd love to chat. So that's about it. I think that's all I have for my first solo episode. Please let me know if you got to the end, if this was interesting at all for you, if you want to hear from me more. Honestly, I could yap and yap and yap, and I love talking about anything. Honestly, I could just have fun with a brown paper bag. Let me know what you think. Send us a message. Tell me to record another one. I will leave it in your hands, but maybe potentially we will do one solo episode a month to sub out our Monday episodes. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning into the Cultivate CNY podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you in our next episode. All right, guys, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to Cultivate CNY. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you left us a review, and make sure you're subscribed to the show. Speaking of the show, if you or someone you know wants to be our next guest on Cultivate CNY, you can submit an application. Just click the link in the show notes, and we'll be in touch soon. If you're a business owner that's interested in getting in front of our audience and would like to find out more about sponsorship or advertising opportunities, shoot us an email at podcast@cnywomensnetwork.com. We'd love to work with you. All right, that's it for now. We will catch you next Monday.